there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learnt an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello and welcome to Being Human Hidden Depths, the podcast by Collaboration Global. And my name is Jill Tiny, and I'm very pleased to say we have our newest member, Andrew Miller, joining us today. So we're finding out all about you, Andrew. Welcome.
Thank you very much. No, it's good to be here. Looking forward to being with Collaboration Global full stop, but obviously looking forward to see where this conversation goes.
We can go in
different directions.
All sorts of weird and wonderful ways. Do you know much about voodoo? Where can we go?
BT it is. There we go.
One of the things we have to remember, which I sometimes forget, is although we are now visual on Zoom with each other, most people will be hearing us as audio on all of the different stations. So if we want to be visual, we have to tell people what we're doing, because Andrew Priestley once was holding up things and I'm like, people can't see that, Andrew. We have to bless his cotton socks. Only a few months in, if that, probably a couple of months in, how did you first find out about us? What was the attraction, apart from obviously my good self? You know, I get that.
I'll give it was you, yeah. Originally Gina reached out to me on LinkedIn, totally random connection, and I haven't actually asked her what her purpose was. I guess she just came across my profile, see the post, just liked the message, that sort of thing. Literally just to reach out and let's have a chat. And I'm always reasonably open to people sort of connect to me on LinkedIn. If there's someone that's sort of one of those things with the heading that sort of says, I help coaches get to six figures by doing
I love those.
But she looked nicer. So we had a catch up and a chat, and I explained what I was doing and where I was, and she explained her situation, and he said, oh, you absolutely have to meet Jill, and I'm part of the Collaboration Global thing, and I think you'll like it, and this sort of stuff. And there was an element of the bit the brain goes, yeah, heard it all before.
Oh, it always goes, yeah.
But she connected us, and we arranged a catch up and a call, and yeah, it was one of those things where it's sort of like, yep, that fits exactly with where I am. That's exactly how I feel. It's exactly my values. Yeah, we need to do something, take this further, and when you explain the Collaboration Global element, what's involved, I'll be honest, I didn't pick up absolutely everything. I still don't have a full concept of everything that it's involved and what I'm getting and what I'm entitled to, but it kind of doesn't matter. It was just a no-brainer.
I think that's the phrase that you used, and I thought, I love it when people say that, because it just makes sense. And to be honest, quite often we don't know what the full value can be, because it comes from the most bizarre places. You go, well, I never saw that coming. You know, it's quite incredible how people will take stuff. I mean, somebody actually said that since she'd been a member, had she not been a member, she would be dead by now. And I'm like, whoa, I can't add that in the list of benefits. It doesn't quite.
You can't guarantee you'll stay alive for another.
No, but I'll do my best. I'll try really hard. But it's what I loved is that when we did start the conversation, it was lots of head nodding and agreement, and we're totally on the same page. And I
think part of it is, you know, what you talk about, what I talk about, and a lot of people there, and I think we're hopefully fairly open about it, is that we're not creating anything new per se. We're not come up with a new method or a new insight or anything like that. It's trying to create a space where the stuff that already exists and the stuff that already happens can flow, and make different ways of making that happen, different ways of packaging it, different ways of looking at it. But ultimately, it's not it's not trying, hey, I've got a magic new system that works every time. No, it's
they don't exist. They just don't exist. And it's interesting that so many people are going out there doing that, and we say, look, there's nothing new under the sun. You know, it's even going back to the Aristotle and Pythag and all the rest of it. They've got it from someone. They've got it from someone. They've started the ball rolling, and they've added their little bit of magic to it. And what we kind of say within Collaboration Global is the difference that people might want to see and what they actually experience is this energy. And the energy is the difference from fear, scarcity, and competition and survival. And I need to get this. So what's in it for me, and how much money can I make out of this? And how am I going to do this? And what my list of benefits, and to a different mindset of like, well, if I come, how can I help people? What could I contribute? How am I going to get involved and really make a difference? And so what we're attracting are people that are already doing that in their day job, already doing that in their life. Well, yeah, of course you help somebody. Why wouldn't you do that? So the people that are what's in it for me sit in a meeting and go, yeah, all right, it's okay. And then they don't see the magic. And when you come with people that are, oh my goodness, it's a no-brainer. I want to be part of this. I want to be proactive. I want to actually get stuff done. I want to help other people to get stuff done. That's when you generate all these amazing spaces where, yes, people earn loads of money out of it potentially, and I've got loads of stories about that, but that doesn't really excite me. It's more the stuff where they say, I was an alcoholic and I've been dry for 3 years and I've not had a drink. It's like, oh my God, that's amazing. So I'm not going to say that whether we're going to send you to drink or take you away from drink, but it just, you never know where it's going to come from. So what would you say to people that are kind of cynical about collaboration, and they kind of go, oh yeah, I've been there, not good, didn't work for me? How do you view collaboration to make it work?
Collaboration is a general concept as opposed to Collaboration Global
specific.
Yeah. Bottom line is, there is if you throw the challenge out there, I've yet find anybody that can come back with the answer, but you can't find anybody that's been successful by themselves.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether a top athlete who's in a singular game, tennis or running or in business, or nobody has got to the top, or whatever their definition of top is, by themselves. Yeah. They need a team, or people to help them, or people to support them, or whatever it might be. Whether that's a coach to help them train, whether it's if it's a team of people around them all working together in a different way, it doesn't matter. So if anybody's trying to plow a furrow by themselves, they're on a long and difficult task.
Yeah.
And the key thing is finding the right people to collaborate with. And in my terminology, it would come under the category of find your tribe, and as a common thing. So when you get the right sort of people that have the right sort of values and the right sort of support mechanisms, and you've got that trust and all those sort of things, then it works. And when you can go into a situation where you have all the people, but if you haven't got it quite right, then yeah, it's not going to work. And that's a two-way thing. One, it's finding the right kind of people, and two, it's about being the right kind of person yourself. And that is a lot about dropping down the shields and revealing yourself a little bit more, and being prepared to be open and vulnerable and all the rest of it, because it's a two-way process.
Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? Probably a decade ago, the thing was, when you go networking, it would be like, how's business? It's fine. Everything's fantastic. It's great. It's, and now we're allowing ourselves a bit more. God bless Brené Brown that got it out there, but we're allowed to be vulnerable. And that's what I like about Collaboration Global, is that you're allowed to go, I've had a bad day. This isn't working. I've been trying this and it doesn't. How can it help me? What do I do? And everyone has their little two-penner. But even just basic marketing, if you don't have other people to say, I tried this and this worked for me, it's not necessarily going to work for you. Hearing all these ideas, you get an idea of what could work for you, and then you can go off and try it, and you can have other people that can support you and share some of the stuff that you're doing and get it out there.
And for me, that's one of the key things of a business mindset, is to get into that concept of I call it the experimental mindset.
Yeah.
It's if you remember all the way back when you had the old chemistry lessons, apologies if you didn't do chemistry, but you get these tests where it's like, you're given a gas. What gas is it? And does it relight a glowing splint? No, it doesn't. Not oxygen. Does it explode and go pop? No, it's not hydrogen. Does it, if you filter it through lime water, does it go cloudy? Yes. It's carbon dioxide. So the first two attempts could be classed as failures. We tried that, it didn't work. We tried that, it didn't work. but you don't think of it as a failure. It's just the next step that you try on. So that's what business is like. There's all these different tools and options and abilities, and it's just a case of let's try this, let's give this a go, let's have that a go. And if that doesn't work, that's all right, it doesn't work. Just give it long enough to give it a go.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't just do it for a week.
Yeah. And the challenge is proving that it doesn't work sometimes, which is a totally different concept. But ultimately, there's no such thing as failure. It's just trying lots of different things.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people have this idea in the back of their minds that what's the right thing to do? I need to do the right thing. What's going to work? And that's too black and white. That doesn't exist in real life. Yeah. It is trial and error and failing a lot. The famous saying is it takes 10 years to be an overnight success, because those 10 years are you falling over and getting up again and falling over and getting up again. And I don't know how long you've been in business, Andrew, but we've been around
10 years.
Yay!
So tomorrow.
Woohoo! Fantastic. Well, we're still falling over and getting up again 30 odd years later. So we've been in business about 32 years now. And we've started businesses that went and didn't do anything. And we've got some that are still going strong and some that we've sold along the way. So it is a huge learning curve. But for me, that's the joy. Is the journey of understanding, like, oh, now I get that, why that went wrong. So now I can adjust and move on. Which is why I like Charlie Wyman's philosophy around marketing, because she has created the Curious Marketing Club. And you have to be curious about what's going to work and what's not going to work, and then investigate and try it all out. And if you haven't got that curiosity, you just want, look, I'll pay you shed loads of money, make it work for me. Do my social media for me, because, there you go. There's all this money. Go do my social media. Probably not going to work. But we can moan about that all day. Let's move on slightly. I was almost on my little soapbox there. Where did Andrew start? Where did you get your businessman hat? Have you ever been employed? Have you ever gone down that corporate route? Or
Totally. Yeah, 16 and a half years working for KPMG.
Oh, really? Right.
There's two levels to that. So on a basic level, that means I'm an accountant. Yay. And that's always one of those things as you're growing up, go to parties. It's the opening line that you do to really bring people in and get them intrigued and interested. And then but I took it another level. And I wasn't just a normal accountant. Oh, no. I was actually an insolvency practitioner.
Whoa.
And that's guaranteed to get them turning around and going in the opposite direction at the party. But
I can imagine. And most people are like, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, yeah. And then you realise you're the Grim Reaper, you're the funeral director of businesses, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, wow.
And my core job was running businesses. And the way it works, if people aren't familiar with it, is if medium to large size companies, if they want to get funding, they get money from a bank, and the bank gives them that money, and they take a charge over it, like a mortgage over the house. And if they can't keep up payments on their mortgage, then the bank gets to repossess it. And they can literally sign bits of paper which will remove the directors from their position, and they reappoint a firm of accountants to basically run that business with all the money going back in a specified order, depending on the legalities and whatever charges are in place and all the rest of it. And there's lots of broader things, and there's the investigations into companies and supporting businesses earlier on, and there's the companies that just go shut down and just selling assets and all the paper goes with it. My main thing was trading administrations, trading at receiverships, where we actually take control of the business, run it for as long as we can, make a profit with the aim of selling it and keeping it intact and keeping it going.
Wow. And did you enjoy that?
At times, yeah. I mean, an actual good quality trading job when you've got a good team around you and it's a good business. And I know that sounds a bit skewed, bear in mind if this gone bust, but there's caveats to that. I'll come back to that. But it's a real buzz. I mean, it's absolutely intense. For the first sort of few weeks, it's literally firefighting in some cases. We have had a few fires. but you're just making decisions left, right, and centre. We've got this creditors just turn up wanting his stuff back. We've got to negotiate with them, get them on board. We've got a customer we need to start working with again. We've got to get them to pay the debts and start paying for the stuff that they want going forward. We've got an employee that's got some difficulties going on. We've got to negotiate with them. You're covering everything, and it's just getting the ship steady in the first instance, and then you can start rolling out the strategy. And there are times when KPMG is a global firm, it's a large organization, and we had some big jobs, we had some little jobs. Some of the big jobs will be all around the country, sometimes all around the world, and we'll just have a division or a section. And there are times I've been in charge of a factory or a section, whatever, which is a very profitable, very successful subsection of the whole organization. Right. So the whole organization's gone down, but this company is actually doing really well. So essentially, you're running a very profitable, very exciting, very interesting business, trading with America, trading with India, whatever it might be. And but yeah, it's not necessarily difficulties.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because people are often thinking that kind of role, the insolvency, as you say, it's like a doomsday place, and you imagine that the owners of those businesses that you're dealing with are going to be mentally, emotionally at their worst. So were you kind of having to deal with those emotions as well, or were you removed from the business owner and you just dealt with the logistics of the business?
Depends on the situation, because sometimes you get totally incompetent directors and you get rid of them. Sometimes you have crooks, and you almost have to keep away from them. I mean, you do meet some of the real dodgy dodgy people. We've had physical threats, we've had personal threats, all these sort of things happening. But in the main, the majority of business owners in this situation are just normal people trying to get through, do their best. They've normally put their money in, sacrifice their own money to make sure the employees are paid and certain creditors are paid, and not taking anything, and at their wits' end. And a lot of what you're doing, it feels quite callous sometimes to say all the directors lose their power, we take control, but sometimes that's a relief for them. Because it's like, we'll take the responsibility, we're going to need your help, because you've got the knowledge of the business. So we always try and work with the people that are there as best, because we know our game, we know what insolvency is, but we don't necessarily know the industry of that business inside out. That's what the people is. So essentially what I was doing, I didn't realize at the time, was it was a coaching concept. I'm not an expert here, you're the expert, let me help you, and just put in some different ways of looking at things differently, or some different boundaries, or whatever it might be.
So what came to the point where you like, okay, by KPMG, I'm off, I'm going to do my own thing? Was it a blinding flash of the obvious? Did you kind of wake up in the middle of the night going, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, there was a specific moment when I realized I didn't want to be there anymore.
Right.
It was a training event, effectively, and it was there to celebrate being promoted. They got all the people in promoted up to senior manager, and we had a whole weekend of various activities, and some of them were in a classroom base. And we had someone running it who, again, I found out later on, was a coach. Didn't know the term at that point, didn't know anything about that at that stage. But one of the things he got to do was to write down on a bit of paper all the things that were important to us, what we have, our values, write down those, and then write down another bit of paper, those of the values of the business as you perceive them. So not the ones that are laminated and stuck on the wall every walks past, the ones that you actually see.
Yeah.
And I wrote mine down, and the intention was to see how we can bring them closer together. And I just looked at them and thought, there'd be at least one overlapping.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And like for the rest of the day, I was just in this daze, just going, oh yeah, I just realized I don't enjoy what I do.
Oh.
And looking back at some of the things I'd done, I worked in Australia for a couple of years, and I've worked on secondment in banks and that kind of thing. At each juncture, I was actually there was something beneath me trying to get away, but instead of changing job, I could just change the location within it. I wasn't brave enough to actually step away from the actual corporate environment. but yeah, then that was that sort of moment. It's just like, yeah, I need to leave at some point.
So this is what we were talking about earlier. We had like a podcast. So let's bring this back into the conversation. Is one of the things you talk about is this ability for all of us to just tolerate something. So you were kind of in that space at that time. So you talk to people and you teach people and you coach people about how to not tolerate things and how to find your joy. But you were exactly in that space, weren't you? That you were just jogging along, and whether you had blinkers on or whether you were consciously choosing to go, oh, this will do. This is all right for now. And I've been in that position before. I used to work for local government. And I was given a promotion, but they didn't give me a contract for about a year. And then after about a year, I'm like, it's a whole year and I've not been given a contract. So I don't have any security here. And yet I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. Why am I here? And it was just like, so this revelation of like, you idiot. Why have you put up with it for so long? So I'm guessing that's where you've had this kind of realization. So how long do you think you were tolerating, and at what point did you kind of start growing away from the I love this job, this is amazing, to well, the money's not bad, and then well, I got to go to Australia, that was okay.
Well, I don't think there was ever a point I actually loved the job. There were some bits in it that were really exciting and
yeah.
Whatever. There's a lot of stuff out of it. It's quite dull, boring legal stuff, admin stuff, all that kind of thing. And the culture had shifted and changed a little bit as well. So the people that were in charge now was a very different feel to it. It felt a bit more like a family business company when I started, because we were small little pockets, and then it became a much more global firm, and you were a bit more of a number. But I don't think I ever got a point where I was really enjoying it. But I think that's the thing, is that very few people do. And we hear these sort of models all the time, but we go through life following the process and the path. We take the first set of exams, we take the next set of exams. What do we do? Well, we'll go to university then. So we'll do what? Do something, whatever. Go to university, then you go to university. Now you get a job, then you get a career, and then you retire. It's a standard model.
Yeah.
And at no point did I have any clear vision as what I wanted to do. I just went for the next step. It was an accident I got into KPMG in the first place. No one even talks about insolvency. So it wasn't even something I was aware of. It was by accident I got in there. And you just make do. And you learn the thing you've got in front of you, and you do your best. And it was interesting once I'd realised that I wasn't wanting to be there anymore. I was speaking to a few other people about how I was feeling and who in some spaces, and it turned out that they weren't happy either, and they knew other people that weren't happy. And hang on a sec, is anybody actually enjoying what they're doing here?
That's crazy. That is sad though, isn't it, when you think about it? Wow.
But if you think of the concept of somebody actually waking up in the morning and going, yes, I'm going to work today, not a self-employed person, an actual employed person going, yeah, I'm so happy, and it exists, but it's very, very rare, and it's looked on as an anomaly.
Yeah. And also, woohoo, I'm going to go and be an insolvency practitioner. It's like the only way you can woohoo that is if you're actually working alongside the business owner to save their business, to hand it back to them, to say, go on, you carry on now. We've got you back on track. And they're happy to do that. That's a kind of good result, isn't it?
For sure, which that did happen quite a lot. We were quite successful at saving the businesses.
Yeah.
But the frustration was actually, you do this, you save all the jobs, they're eternally grateful and all the rest of it, and then you never see them again.
And you go, bye. Yeah.
Right. The bank goes, right, what money have you got for us? Oh, is that all? Okay, suppose it'll do. And next job. And any interaction you do have with that business going afterwards, they've suddenly separated, and now they're a new business, and they don't.
So hang on, not only were you not necessarily enjoying the day-to-day stuff that you had to do, you weren't necessarily acknowledged for a good job, because it was just onto the next thing, and you're not seeing the people that are grateful to you. So you've got no more connection with them. So you're not necessarily being valued, and you're not being driven by a purpose, because you're just doing what you've always been told to, this next thing and next thing and next thing. So yeah, understandably, you could imagine that you potentially are opening yourself up to a lot of mental ill health. I don't know whether you suffered depression, or whether some people, you hear these stories and it's like, and I had this massive breakdown, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? But this is the insidious way that it all kind of starts, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I had a breakdown, but it got to that space eventually, and I think whether it's a natural innate sense or part of the training, not the training, but the skin thickening process of being in insolvency, you got very good at sort of coping and surviving because you're in tough situations mentally and physically at times. So as someone that's been in insolvency a long time has got quite a few good coping resources. If you don't, you're gone in a couple of years, to be honest.
Really? Yeah.
But I mean, there's a few steps in between, but it got to a stage when I was literally feeling physically sick driving into work every single day.
Oh, every day.
Every day, and it's just like I don't want to be. This is a point where I knew I didn't want to be there, and I'd
Yeah,
explored
it's a
ways
bit of a
out.
clue, really, isn't it?
So I knew I didn't want to be there by this stage, but then knowing not I didn't want to be there made it worse, because I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. And ironically, my job was, of course, as a leader and that sort of thing, was to motivate and
Oh
inspire other
yeah,
people.
yeah.
So
How
there's
do
me
you
going,
do
I don't
that?
want to be here, and then trying to get other people to be encouraged to do what they do.
Wow. I mean, you can't, most people can't see my face, but I'm in shock here that it's like, you go off to the bathroom, throw up, and then come back, go, right, what should we do? Woohoo! And it's like, did nobody, none of your line managers or people around you spot how miserable you must have been?
Oh no, because I'm great at hiding it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've had a wall in front of me since I was 4 years old. I've been building that wall, and the years of insolvency helped that strengthen that even stronger, because I can just back things off and create that image that I want to create, and I'm not letting anybody in to see what goes on.
So dare I ask what happened at 4 years of age that started you putting those bricks together?
Yeah, something so minor and trivial.
No, it's always the way though, isn't it?
But it's hilarious. But it was, as a child, it made a difference. So it was quite simply, it was a Christmas morning. I remember it, and family were gathered around me. There's me. I've got an older brother, and there's mum and dad. So there's 4 of us, and sat around on the parents' bedroom floor, opening presents that Santa had brought, and all the rest of it. I think for about 4. I mean, I can't remember the exact year, but it wasn't a calendar. And it was one of those things where, looking back at it, I should have been suspicious when my brother offered me one of his sweets. I mean, that should be a warning sign anyway, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's my older brother. That's not what older brothers do. And weirdly, it was chewing gum. He offered me a stick of chewing gum. Right. And I remember saying no, because Dad had drummed it into me that I shouldn't have chewing gum. It's bad for it gets blocked in the throat and all that sort of thing. But my dad, who was in on it, said, no, it's fine. And of course, it's one of those trick chewing gum things where I grabbed the stick, pulled it, and the metal spring comes flinging out onto my thumb.
Yeah.
And yes, there's that sort of sense of it's more shock than the pain, but in this case, it was the pain as well.
Yes, I can imagine.
So
on Christmas morning as well.
Exactly. So I'm this little kid bursting into tears.
Yeah.
I've got brother and dad laughing their heads off because they've managed to outwit me. Well done. And so, of course, I turned to my mum. I was always a mummy's boy, and that was where my source of love and comfort comes, and all the rest of it. Spin round, she's laughing her head off as well.
Oh,
which, to be fair, I don't no blame here, because I'd be doing exactly the same. It's natural. There's no way.
No, it's not. I wouldn't have been crying. I'm sorry. I'm a weird one. I do every time somebody hurts themselves and everyone falls down laughing. Even our eldest fell over once, and she said, "I'm in a lot of pain, but you're allowed to laugh because it must look hilarious." And I'm like, "No, it's not funny. It's really not funny." But I get that some people do find it funny.
So from that point, it was some seeds were planted. So first of all, trust fell away. If I can't trust those near me, who can I trust? And this touches what we're talking about earlier on about collaboration. So up until now, I've kind of done everything myself,
right?
And I've had to work on myself to get over that, to say I need support from other people, I need to collaborate, because I've relied on myself all the time. The wall comes up, so I don't want people to see what's really going on inside, because they're just going to laugh at me. And I say that's where it started building, and you know how things work. Life then adds to it, and you find other reasons to put the brick in, and so on and so forth. And underlying all of that, a huge sense of fear of rejection.
Right.
So yeah, trying to sell something and somebody saying no sort of causes the flash up, and trying to, even just phoning somebody and then not responding can flash it up sort of thing.
You're not the only one that has that. Yes, there's a lot of people say that. It is really interesting, because what you're describing is you've obviously done a lot of work on yourself, because you've gone back to an incident, and there might have been 2 or 3 that in your subconscious you've forgotten, but that one is like shining up as a beacon. But you've done that work to understand where it's come from. So that kind of gives you a coping mechanism to understand that the emotion that you felt then is how you've translated it into a story, and the story is this, so I'm not allowed to show my feelings, and I've got to protect myself. And as you say, this brick wall comes up. But at the same time, you're probably seeing quite clearly now, and you look back on your life, and it's always easy in hindsight, how much damage that's done along the way, in that, if only I'd realized that I could have put my hand up and said, I'm not happy, I don't like this, I'm not going to do this anymore. But probably the thought of, when you got the KPMG job, it was like, wow, big name, big company, aren't you? Well done, you must be really clever to be part of that, and what a great job. So to go, actually, I don't like it, I'm going to go the other way, would have been, people, why are you doing that? That's very disappointing. You shouldn't be doing, for goodness sake, how ridiculous, you've got a good salary.
And that happened as well. It wasn't just a fear of it, and the actual act of leaving was painful, because I did enjoy the people I worked with. We got on really well with them, and even the bosses, to be fair, certainly the media bosses. So it was never anything against the firm. So the handing my notice in, and telling people about it, I had people crying, had people getting angry. I lost friends as a result of it. So literally what you've just said, in terms of you've done all this and you're wasting it, and that kind of thing. So it did actually have an outcome. But to speak to the early point, I've done that inner work to process that stuff. So it's not just about creating the story around it. I've actually gone into it and done the inner child work and shuffled things around. And the memory of that 4-year-old incident came up through the exploration. It's not something I've been carrying around with me. If you'd asked me 20 years ago, could you? No, don't remember it at all. What are you on about? But when I did that and it cropped up, it was suddenly as though I had been remembering it every day, but I don't think I had. It's weird.
I get that, because I've gone through that process as well, and it's almost like when all of a sudden they say, think about something, you're like, oh yeah, and it's like boom, right in you. And like you say, you've never thought, you maybe thought about it at the time, but bit by bit it had faded away, because you chose for it to fade away. And then when it's brought back, and you're allowed to forgive those people, and to forgive yourself, and to peel away that layer of the onion that is our life. And we've all got these amazing things, the baggage that we carry around with us. So you leaving actually must have been, for me, when I handed my notice in, like, you're leaving? I'm like, yes, I'm free. And it was like this, whew. All I did was transfer one problem into another place, to be honest, at that point. I wasn't actually free until I started my own business. So let's fast forward from KPMG. What happened after that, having handed in your notice?
There's a short story and a long story. I'll do the medium one. Well, they counter-offered.
Oh.
So I went through all the effort of leaving, and there was a journey between that, because I found out about coaching, and I wanted to do coaching, and I actually started training, and I actually managed to get seconded out of insolvency, and was working with the head of coaching at KPMG. With, at the moment, we just integrated with the German practice. We were introducing some people type systems into the German practice that we'd been running.
Right.
I'd had this role where I was the sort of, called it a people management leader, where I was the responsible for the well-being of the people in the team, essentially. And that was one of the things that had been newly introduced, and that's how I got into personal development. And we were on out to Germany. So I had this comment. I was working with the head of coaching, who knew exactly what my agenda was going to work with me, mentor me, and help me into an internal coaching role within KPMG. And then he died.
Oh, ow.
He'd had cancer before, and an operation. So it was cancer of the eye, I think, and he had it replaced, and then it came back. And there was a period where I'd go to meetings and he'd cancel, not turn up, and that sort of stuff. And eventually got a text through from him saying the cancer's back. And he was quite a phlegmatic and sort of matter of fact kind of guy. So he took it in a very sort of accepting it sort of way, but days were numbered. And well, first I remember going to his funeral, and the room was full of people that he had helped and supported and worked with, and all of them were telling tales of how he changed their lives and how they wouldn't have been where they were if it wasn't for him, and all the rest of it. So alongside the tragedy was the inspiration of, this is what
his life meant something.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, that the old sort of talk about what do you want people to say at your funeral?
Yeah.
When you're at someone else's and they're saying, not through ego, but that makes a difference. That's meaningful. That looks more. Can I do that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I strongly believe that everyone is on this planet for a reason, and everyone should discover what their purpose is and what that reason is. And he obviously had his, because he'd managed to help so many different people. And that is incredibly attractive, isn't it? When you think like, oh, wow, you know, what was he doing again? Can I do that? Is that something I can get involved in? And you were already on that track. So
there's no one there saying, oh, he helped me earn an extra £1 million or anything like that. It was fitting stuff. And then, as a consequence of not being around, boom, I'll snap straight back into insolvency.
No, that's not fair. Who did that? That's a horrible person to do that.
Because this comment ended, other people didn't know what we'd arranged, blah blah blah. And so having got out, I was then back in. So that's when I got into that stage of really getting into that rut. And then so eventually got the gut, handed me notice, going to set myself up as a coach, and started with a very specific niche, which was helping business owners going through the failure or having lost everything, but help them deal with the emotional stress that goes with it. That all those people helping with the business, there's no one helping with the person, sort of thing. And you do your best while you're there, but ultimately you're not incentivized to help them. So once the job's done, you're away and you leave be and that sort of stuff. So you can be helpful while you need them, but there's no ongoing support. For example, it's like, so as far as I'm aware, I was the only person with this sort of insolvency skills and then the coaching focusing on literally a category of one.
Well, that makes perfect sense, because as you say, if you're going, I mean, and at the moment, probably an awful lot of people are going through that kind of issue, is that who do you turn to? Most people end up going to the doctor, probably, who has no concept of what they've been through and just goes, here's a prescription.
I mean, there are more counselling programs out there. I know some people are giving support in that areas, and again, 10 years ago that wasn't really anything that was being talked about. So the market has shifted. I say there was a little counter offer, so I did actually stay a little longer, where I was doing training programs for internal training programs and developing those and that kind of thing. And the intention was I was going to work half on that and half on my own business, which was like perfect. And of course that never happened. The partner that in London that was arranging it all started dragging his feet, changed his mind, and I just got to the point where I've had enough. I had nothing to do at work. I was coming in, sat at my desk, twiddling my thumbs, being paid a fortune to do brickle, and totally soul destroying.
How long ago was this?
Well, I 2010 I would have left permanently, and then started my new business 1st of January 2011. 1111.
Wow, that's nice. That's 10 years. So, any regrets?
Oh God, no.
Never. Just think about it for a minute. Just think about it.
I've had challenges. I've created stress on myself. I've got close to running out of money, and at no point have I ever thought
Let's go back. Let's see if they'll let me have my job back. No.
I mean, the decision process to leave always had underneath it was if this doesn't work, I'll be able to step back into a job because of the experience I had and all the rest. Yes. I can't now because it's moved on. So that took some away of the fear. Yeah. But at no point did I ever really consider it as being a
Good man. And the first year is so hard, isn't it? Whenever anyone's starting a new business for the first time. Well, you kind of actually, to be fair, on the first year, you're running on adrenaline, aren't you? Woohoo, I've got my own business and here's my business card and I've got a website and it's all exciting. And then the second year, it's like, it's going to get better soon. I'm going to get more clients. And the third year, it's like, oh God, this is not as easy as I thought.
Well, it's only when
playing golf on a Friday afternoon now.
But it's only when I went into running my own business that I started realizing the problems that lay with me and all the things we've talked about and that sort of stuff. You know, it then became a journey of me trying to understand myself, to work out what my issues were, which had been hidden within the corporate environment, and now there's nowhere to hide. So when you're going on these sales programs and things on what to do and how to sell your business, and it's like, well, pick the phone up and speak to somebody, and I couldn't do that. Then you've got to start asking questions why that is. You know.
Yeah.
So it became a long journey of self-discovery before I actually hit where I needed to hit.
So would you say the values that you had when you were looking at the KPMG values and your values and you realized that there wasn't even an overlap, do you still have those same values now, or have they morphed since you've done the work on yourself and had your own business?
Be honest, I don't think I have. If I did keep the values from back then, I don't know where they are. And I don't remember what I wrote.
Okay.
I suspect there's not a massive difference. It's certainly going to be a thing. I've always been somebody that people got on with. There was also a personal connection. The people I work with always said they came to me because they knew I had no personal agenda. It was about them and helping them. I even had people from insolvency that they liked talking to me because I actually treated them as a human being.
That helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, strange concept, isn't it? Rather than a number. So those clues have been coming through, but again, you only sort of notice them in retrospect. But no, I couldn't actually compare them now, to be honest. But I suspect they're similar.
So how has your business morphed from what you started 10 years ago to now? Because I came to one of your events, Breathing Spaces event, and it was beautifully put together. And the people that you're attracting are wise people, I would say. They were considered. There was no razzmatazz. There was no high energy. It was very calm and considered and helpful and inspiring. So what's your kind of focus now? Presumably you're not still helping businesses that are about to go under.
Not the focus. I mean, I guess it's always there, and I was doing stuff last year to in that angle, and every now and then get someone. But that got to a certain point. I wrote a book on it, interviewed people that had been through insolvency, and which an award-winning book actually.
Would you like to tell us what it is and where it's available?
Hope Won't Pay the Wages is what it's called. Obviously, it's on Amazon. But it's one of those things that it's come round. Its time has come round again. So last year it won. Business Game Changer magazine called it one of the top 3 books of 2020.
Brilliant, well done.
And as I say, I interviewed people that had been through an insolvency, what they experienced, what they went through, and advice that they would give to people going through it, and then anonymized it and brought my own experience in. So it goes through the journey of a business going through difficulty, and at each step, what you can do to take practical steps, both emotionally and physically, to look after yourself. That's the key thing. Survival. When I talk about survival of a business owner, it's the person that needs to survive, because the business can go and be resurrected. The person can't. Sorry, Buddhists. Didn't mean to upset you there.
Not in this lifetime, anyway. And it's
within this
resilience, isn't it? People are talking more and more about resilience because, and especially with the COVID and everything that's been going on, it's too easy to get up at 6 a.m. and then work through until 9 or 10 at night, and then wonder why you're tired all the time. You know, and all I'm doing is sitting at my desk. I don't know why I'm tired all the time. But you know, you've got to look after yourself. You've got to exercise and eat right and go out and fresh air and enjoy the sunshine. Because
and again, I mean, that's because we were talking earlier on about the word tolerance, and this is where it comes in, is when resilience flips into tolerance. And resilience is a good thing, but when we're banging our head against a brick wall and keep going and going and pushing ourselves beyond the levels of what is good for us, then we're moving into tolerance. So For some people, working throughout the day is fine, as long as it's not affecting them, not a problem. Each has got their own energy
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
However, we feel guilty if we don't, and that's when you're into the trap. Same with people in businesses. It's that I've got to make this work. I must make this business work. I mustn't let it go down. Why? If you let that, it may be, I'm not saying you have to, but maybe you let it go, it frees you up to become who you need to be. And this is what, through the book, all the interviews are coming out saying, once it had gone, oh God, I felt so much better.
Yeah.
and the media and the government are obsessed with avoiding insolvencies. When you talk about it, we mustn't let these companies go bust. But actually, healthy economies have a lot of insolvencies. It's an evolutionary concept. Some businesses have to go to free up those people to go and do something better. And thus it evolves and moves.
And it comes back to this failure thing, doesn't it? It's not about failure and it didn't work. It's about it's an experiment and it's moving on.
Absolutely.
You hear these things that, it's the first million to make is the hardest. Then after that, it's like, well, you know what you're doing, and 2 million, 3 million. And there's a story, I can't remember where it's come from now, where there's a guy that didn't get his first million until he was 50. And then when he was 52, he lost it through various things. But and everyone's like, oh, it must be devastating for you. He said, well, no, I know what I'm doing now. So by the time he was 55, he'd made 2 million. By the time he was 60, he had 10 million, and then he lost it again. And then they're like, oh no, it's tragic. No, I know what I'm doing now. So by the time he was 65, he had like half a billion or whatever. So it's like, you learn everything. Everything is this learning experience that you can, it's valuable. And I think the letting go, it's really hard. I had to let go about November before last. I was in a position in a partnership with somebody, and I had to let it go. And it took me 18 months before I'm like, why are you hitting your head against a brick wall? And I was tolerating things. It's exactly what you're describing. And I think so many people will have been through this. If you look back if you've been in business for more than 10 years, it will have happened to you at some point. And the letting go, and it's like when they say making the decision is the hard part. Once you make the decision, then you know where you're going. And it was a case of looking back, help. It's not working. Look forward. Woof, off we go. And we did so much in the space of about 4 or 5 weeks over the Christmas period. And it was like, bang, 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 done. Let's move on. And it was brilliant. And people turned up out of thin air to go, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And they came and they helped me. And it's
because it's you coming out rather than a different version of you, which is when you're in the wrong space. And again, going back to the Buddhist concept, is that a concept of attachment is suffering. When attachment to things is what creates the suffering. So, and what's going on right now with all the coronavirus and this sort of stuff and the lockdown, there's an attachment to how life used to be. There's an attachment to how life should be. There's an attachment to how they think the future will be. And when these things don't happen, then that's where the stress gets created, as opposed to just saying, okay, well, we are where we are. And this was it's the cliche anyway, but this is absolutely standard in the insolvency world. This is where we are. We've got to deal with what we've got in front of us. Let's move forward from there. And it's easy to say, not necessarily easy to do, but that's where it comes from. You've just got to say, well, here's life. This is what I've got. These are the skills and resources I've got, and this is the situation I'm in. There's something I can do, and let's move forward.
I read recently, sitting up there on my bookshelf, Michael Singer's The Surrender Experiment. You might be one of the people that recommended it to me. I don't know.
You've told me about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I forget who told me. I forget who told me. But it is exactly this letting go and this surrendering. And, whether you believe the universe has got a plan for you, whether you believe God's got his finger on you and making sure you're going to be okay. Or if you go extolling Eckhart Tolle, who believes in the power of now, and now is the only time we have. You can't worry about the future, you can't worry about the past, because you've only ever got now. When you allow yourself to surrender and go, it is what it is, it's fine, it's this calm that you can have that helps your head have this clarity, and you can see things more clearly if you're not attached. And I've just made a little note of that. I love the fact that it's the attachment that causes the angst and the stress and the worry, and and we have to just let it go. It's like people talking about the new normal. Well, the old normal is never going to be the same. And we don't know what the new normal is going to turn into, but hopefully it will be a new normal that looks after the planet, a new normal that looks after the people that are the glue that keeps this country together, a new normal that's going to make people realize they don't need stuff so much, and what's really important to them. And we hopefully there'll be a lot of an age of realization of, okay, this is my friends and my family. I need to talk to them more, because who knows when we might not be allowed to see each other again, and you have to kind of reevaluate the life that you're living, and how you're creating your life. So it's so true what you say. It's the attachment that causes that.
And I think the key thing there is, hopefully then this will happen, but then we're in that space of hope, and we can't control that. What we can control is ourselves. So if we hope for a life of better enlightenment and a kinder place, it starts with us. We've got to become more enlightened and kinder and all the rest of it. And that's the only thing we can control. So it always comes back to self. What can I do to be a better person? What can I do to have a more enjoyable life? What can I do to make things a better place? And then everything else you can help, but you can't control from there.
Yeah. And then when you've got that kind of going on in your life, and you connect up with other people that have got that going on in their life,
then the magic happens.
And then the collaborations can come, and you can do anything. The possibilities go stratospheric. It's brilliant.
So go back to answer your question, rattle through a bit quicker. So the book came out, and I, through various things, I actually got to the point where I was speaking to government to be a policy advisor on business failure, and coming up with these ideas of creating a support network for people and that kind of thing. Government to governments, it never went anywhere. But in that moment, I suddenly realized that actually what I wanted to create was something bigger than I was able to do right now, unless I had the support of something from there. And ultimately kind of wasn't working at that point. And obviously I'm working with people without any money, so there's always a flaw in that business plan, but actually it's not as stupid as you think. But I made a shift at that point, and went into business with another coach. He invited me in to join his practice, and we collaborated for a few years, and basically working with small business owners, helping them to do better. But I was always more interested in the person, and obviously I understand the business. But if you get the person right, then the business stuff's quite simple. It's us that holds the sales back, So that was the thing. And then within that, it got to a point where we realized we were kind of going in different directions, and we were going through an amicable divorce. Perfectly fine. But I was going through that process of, who am I? What do I stand for? What's important? Who do I help? All that sort of thing. And essentially, through a lot of thinking, one thing or another, realized that the people I worked best, they weren't coming to me because they wanted more money. They weren't coming to me because of any grandiose things. It's they weren't happy. And then working with them, they came away, and they were enjoying life more and enjoying integrating their business with them, rather than as being two separate things. And that's where the concept of business enjoyment came from, and then moved into that space. So when the two of us separated, then business enjoyment got created, and it took a little more developing as to what that actually meant, and essentially came up with the business enjoyment model, which is essentially a form of Maslow, and how that different works, and from there came the breathing spaces you mentioned, which is small groups of people discussing confidentially, helping each other, understanding themselves, so they can understand their business better, but are helping other people with their understanding. And we work through the business enjoyment model as we go around it.
And that is
that's forwarded there.
No, round of applause for that, man. It's so important to give people that space, and so many people don't bother to find that space where you can, we've all got amazing experiences, we've all got value that we can add to each other. And that's what you're creating in those breathing spaces, where people can kind of, I'm imagining, you've had a 2-hour session or whatever, and you've shared different bits and pieces, that some people will be sharing stuff, and it'll be like, oh, I'm going to have another chat with him later, because actually he's got something that he can help me with. And it's just kind of what human beings do, is pulling together and helping each other. It's
I
not
mean,
rocket
people keep
science.
thinking that they're always at a networking event and that sort of stuff, and everyone comes and says, "Well, it is kind of networking, but it isn't." Like your meetings. And so when you're sharing at such a deep level, you're getting straight into trust, and business is based on trust. So what happens? Business happens, but that's not what it's about. That's a consequence.
Yeah.
And on the subject of consequences, that's the key thing for me in terms of enjoyment, is about the sense of purpose. When you can truly understand what your purpose is and what the mission is you're moving towards, and the direction you're going in, then you get into the flow of that becomes the thing that you're all about. It's not a case of work and life and balance. It's work and life harmony. And enjoyment then becomes a consequence of that. You don't seek enjoyment, it's a result of doing something else.
And you look around and you've been having so much fun, and all of a sudden you go, oh wow, I've been working hard, but I'm not working hard because I'm just having so much fun. It's just enjoyment.
Exactly. And that purpose has to be for the benefit of somebody else.
Yes.
So you need to have the things in place that look after you, that look after your bank balance, that you pay the bills, look after you as an individual, look after the fears. And that can get you can get all that ticked off, and that can get you to a happy place where everything's working great. Yay. Tolerating. It's good enough. It's fine. That extra little kick is when you're doing it something for other people. And the word enjoyment itself, it comes from Old French. So we think of it means that I am enjoying, but enjoyment means en joie. It means to give joy to rather than to get joy from. And if you think of something like encourage, I encourage somebody, it's encourage, it's give courage to. And enjoyment is the same root of word. So it's give joy to.
Well, you learn something new every day. I love that. That's I can do something with that, to give joy to. So I'm assuming, I was just about to ask you what your purpose is, but I'm assuming that that's kind of what it is in a nutshell, is it? Unless...
Well, the top line purpose, and certainly for the business, is to actually create a different measure of success in business. And and this was the thing that when I got into the concept of business enjoyment, I went back to the first book I wrote. It was all in there, and I hadn't realized it at the time. But the people who'd lost everything and had to start again, they had a totally different perspective on life. And then they knew it wasn't about the material trappings and the cars and that kind of stuff. And they had to find what was important to them. And it was never about the money. And yet in society in which we're based, really, it's still all about the money. And people talk about different things, but basically the stock market's based on money, and the press are always talking about the money. And as much as we individually know it's not correct, we're still in a society where that's what it is. So what would the FT index look like if it was based on something other than just how much money? If it was based on the good you were doing, if it was based on how you collaborate, how the team were energized about, I don't know what yet. That's part of the journey of finding out.
Absolutely.
But the concept of what Simon Anholt was talking about, the Good Country Index, how do we translate that into businesses as well? The same sort of concept.
And I think this past year is going to go some way towards shaping the way people feel about their businesses, about their life, about what they actually need. I think it's going to reframe everything. You don't need your fancy car sitting on the drive if you ain't going anywhere. So what's the point? You need a push bike so you can stay healthy. That kind of, it's a totally different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost to the end of our conversation. It's gone so quickly and it's been so fascinating. I've written loads of notes here because I love the fact that whilst we're on the same page and we're in agreement, which is lovely, there's an awful lot in there that kind of adds to what I'm thinking and what I'm doing, and to give joy to and having business enjoyment. It's a beautiful concept, and I think that's why whether you think of synchronicity or synergy or whatever, we were destined to kind of come together to create something of which we don't know what it is yet.
That's all right. It's all an experiment. So
exactly. If all we do is create this podcast, hurrah, that's good enough. But I'm sure we're destined for greater things. So anyone listening to this, watch this space. Jill Tynan, Andrew Miller. There's more to be done. There's more to be said. Hopefully we'll have you back for another podcast at a future date and we can update everybody. If somebody wanted to contact you, Andrew, what's the easiest way for them to get hold of you?
Well, they can jump to my website, which is businessenjoyment.com. And my email's fairly simple from that, Andrew at businessenjoyment.com. If they want to, they can actually download. I'll go to the website, pop-up should arise, and they can download a copy of the most recent book, More Than Just Money, which will run through the business enjoyment model and mention about the breathing spaces as well. And if they hold on, they get a couple of emails, nothing too onerous. I'm not a spammer, but they will get an invite if they're interested in that sort of thing as well. But yeah, that does mean putting their email address in.
He's a very nice man. It's okay, isn't it?
But yeah, that runs out thing, and yeah, talks about purpose a bit more and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And as I always remind people, if they would like to meet Andrew in person, if you come along to a Collaboration Global session, he is generally there on the last Tuesday of the month, and you can find us on Eventbrite, or you can go to our website, collaborationglobal.org, and book directly there. It doesn't cost anything to come along. You meet some brilliant people, including Andrew, and you can ask him more about business enjoyment. Thank you so much for coming today, Andrew. I've had a thoroughly lovely time. And I look forward to unpacking more of what we can do together so we can have more fun, basically.
Oh, we only scratched the surface there.
We did. Indeed. It went fast.
It always does. But
Thank you so much.
But we'll make it to a series.
Yeah. Who knows where we're going to go. Brilliant. Thank you very much. See you soon.